Share meeting. This is a main share meeting, and today it's with great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome Duane, who's come to share on the topic of Step 5 promises for up to 40 minutes, after which we'll open up for the Q&A portion of the meeting. Duane, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good day, everyone. My name is Duane Miller, and I'm an addict from Moreno Valley, California. As always, I'd like to thank God for this day of recovery, and I'd like to thank you guys for the honor and privilege of being able to share some information that I've learned along the way at a meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. Young, thank you for calling on me, and thank you for your graciousness because I missed the last one. I don't know what happened. I would like to say that it was somebody else's fault, but it was mine. But I wasn't going to miss this one. It was not going to happen again. So, with that in mind, let's go to it. He asked me to provide a topic, and it was on page 75. And I'm going through the steps again. And I know, like people like to say that I'm going through a piece of work, and I'm a little, uh, I don't know what I mean about that. I don't necessarily see it as going through a piece of work. I'm not a big book expert, but the few places that when I've seen when they're talking about working the big book, they're talking about working with others. I'm just going through the steps to get prepared to work with someone, and I like that attitude. Going through the steps is great. We put in some great effort, and but the purpose of it, as far as I'm concerned, is to take this information, to take this experience because of the experience I've had, to go work with somebody else. And I'm big on that. I've been a few different places, and I'm really concerned about our fellowship. Here I go getting up on my high horse again. I get up on my I see places that where people aren't doing that. I see old timers where they're sitting back and saying, "Oh, I got mine," and time for other people. Well, I can see if you're talking about events, but nowhere in this book do I see that we should not work with others. As a matter of fact, in the forward to the second edition, it says something that the strenuous work, one alcoholic with another, and we can add addict to that. So every time I say alcoholic, just add dot, dot, dot to that, if you don't mind, please. It's vital to permanent recovery. It didn't say, well, you only do it for the first 5 years or you take breaks. I mean, yeah, sure, we take breaks, but it says it's vital to permanent recovery. So when I get to the step 5, and I actually just did another one last night, I was able to do a fifth step, share my fifth step with someone else. We're going through it. They call it the booking process. Blew me away. They were talking about booking people. Now I've been through the book. We go through it pretty thoroughly. And these guys, when they were talking about booking, I thought they had a business going on. These guys, when I was booking these people, I'm like, oh, they got some type of entertainment business. What are you talking about? You're booking them. But then I saw their books, and their books look like mine. We believe this is a textbook where I come from. And in textbooks, if you get a textbook, you see any college textbook, they got highlights, they got notes, they got all kinds of different things in this book, annotations in the book. And that's what my book looks like. And, different colors and stuff. And, somebody once said the big book is not a coloring book. And I thought it was the most idiotic thing to say because it says it's a textbook. Anytime I've seen a real textbook from college, it had those type things in it because people make notes because it's a book used for reference and study of a subject. Okay, let me get off my high horse. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. I don't want to do that. Because there's some things I'm going to the grave with, y'all. When I sit down and I give that information to that first guy or whoever I'm giving it to, man, I'm not trying to illuminate because there's things I don't want you to know about me. There's things that I'm not proud of, but that's what it says I have to do. But then it says, once we have taken that step, this is a condition. As a matter of fact, when we talk about promises, just about every place in the big book where it says it in promise, there's a condition that must be met. I don't see any blind promises. I see if this, then that. So it says, once we have taken this step, okay, then it says, what's the condition? Withholding nothing. It says, I'm going to be delighted. Well, let me tell you something. The first time I did a really thorough fifth step, I was not delighted. When I walked away from that man's house to follow the rest of the instructions, I remember saying to myself, and it doesn't make any sense, but it's what I said to myself. I said, God, You better be who you say you are. Because I just told that cat some shit was going to the grave with. I wasn't telling nobody that stuff. So I did not feel delighted. But what I was when I did that is I was clean inside. I had did what they asked me to do. I had shared this thing with God, and that's the easy part, but another human being. That was the difficult part. And the thing was, I had to get to the point where that third step in my mind, I started taking some action based on the third step. And the third step, is when do I really turn my will and my life over to the care of God? Well, the first example that I see of me actually trusting the power that I don't fully understand is step 5. So that's when I really putting some trust into this power because up until then it's been kind of like okay, yeah, 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 and then even my fourth step is really I get a little guidance, but really it's not much more than a solitary self-appraisal. I got to share this with somebody. This is my opinion, by the way. I share this stuff with somebody and get the feedback, right? And if page 18 is clear, if I'm clear with that, then this guy has gotten my trust. Okay, I trust him with some things. And so that's what happened. Even though I try to trust, I walked away from there. I wasn't feeling good. But something had happened inside, and this is what happened. It says we can be alone at perfect peace and ease. That's good because the next thing is they talking about me going home and spending an hour perfect and quiet, right? And that happened to me. And I didn't realize that was happening to me. It was okay for me to be by myself. No radio, no television, just chilling. As a matter of fact, when I drive today, I don't turn the radio on. I'm just, I'm in traffic, but I rarely turn the radio on because other thoughts are going through my mind. And I'm okay with that. It says, my fears fall from us. What does that mean? Well, what it meant for me is that I live on the East Coast because you guys may not be familiar with how my country is set up. Philadelphia is on the East Coast. That's where I was born. I live on our West Coast, which is California. So it's like 3,000 miles away. So I go home right after I do this fifth step, obviously the steps that follow that. And something is going on inside. And I start talking to people in Philly. And I start saying, hey, man, I'm going to be back in a couple of months. I'm going to need to sit down and talk to you. Unconsciously, I was preparing these people for me to sit down and make amends. And I just, it's just coming to me. So I believe that was the nearness of my creator, right? We begin to feel, that's another promise, right? We begin to feel the nearness of our creator. See, if I got backup, I'm willing to do a little bit more. If I'm out there by myself, man, I'm not really trying to do a whole lot. But the backup is here, right? And I'm just protected, is what it is. And so what happens is, I'm sitting at these people, I'm looking them in the eye. Hey, I'm gonna be back here in a little while, man, and I'm gonna need to spend some time with you. Will that be okay? Right? I didn't go through the whole thing because I'm not in amends yet, and that's what I was doing. And it really freaked me out when I got back. I'm like, where'd that shit come from? You know? But that's what's going on. But this is what I like to say. It says we may have had certain spiritual belief, but we now begin to have a spiritual experience. I like to talk when I get to do shares. I talk to people about having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, right? That says in step 12, right? But I always say, is it a lightning bolt or did it start sooner? This is where it starts. They talk about the spiritual experience of some people having that sudden overwhelming God consciousness in the appendix, but then it says a lot of us have it through the educational variety. So the book is masterfully done in my opinion. So what I'm looking at is like it's saying like, yo, man, something's going on. If I have done the things preceding this, so withholding nothing. When we go through this thing, we got a place where we get it because they say admitting nothing later. We call it deep dark secrets, stuff that didn't make the inventory, didn't make the fears inventory, didn't make the sexual inventory, didn't make any of those things, the sexual harms inventory, didn't make those things because you ain't did nothing to me. But it's some shit that I did, or maybe that didn't come out. The deep dark secrets. That's what we call it. Illuminating every nook and cranny of the path of darkness. And that's the stuff that, man, I said to myself, I didn't feel good talking about that. But if you've never been clean, since I had never been clean inside, it wasn't this refreshing feeling that I felt, right? Being spiritually clean for a few seconds. It was just different. But some other things started happening. I started walking a little bit different. I'm gonna tell you what else would happen after I did that fifth step. This one I'm talking about is many years ago. I felt that I belonged in the fellowship. Before I had done a fifth step, I felt like I was a fake, a phony, and a fraud because they were talking about these things they had done, and everybody people got the polyparrot syndrome, and I want to sound good, and I want to repeat what this person said, but I knew that I hadn't done what they had done. Which I heard these cats, not everybody, but I heard some cats talking about it, and I wanted that, but I don't finish things. I don't do things like that. I get started and I'm off to something else, you know. And what happened was I had finally gotten to that point where I did what I believe other people had done, and so at that point. I sat down in my seat and I belonged here. You know, I belonged. Finally, I felt as if I belonged someplace. It was nice showing up. It was nice hanging out with you guys. But now I felt that I had earned my seat. We talk about earning our seats being pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, PAID, right? That's how I paid for my seat. You know, but how do I earn my keep? I do the rest of the steps. See, the seat is here. I get here through the bad stuff, but I keep it doing some other stuff. And I follow you guys. And what happened is my life changed. Sometimes your life changes really soon. And they called me when I was all happy and yeah, life is great. They told me that it was a pink cloud. Then I hit a low spot. And I remember this old timer says, okay. And he shared, man, we're in the men's meeting. He checked me, man. And I didn't like it. He says, well, I'm sure glad Duane is off his effing pink cloud. Maybe he'll finally start to do some real work around here. Boom. I'm like, damn, I didn't like that shit. But I just sat there because you know why? I ain't had no place else to go. So you wasn't going to run me out of this piece because I know what ran me in here, you know, and I don't want to go back to that. I don't know how not to go back to that. So I do this. So the feeling of the drink problem, has disappeared will often come strongly. When I did that first fifth step, when I first completed, I was almost 2 years sober. And so that old timer that said that to me has correctly identified what I was doing. You know, the 1, 2, 3, cha cha cha, or the two step deal. You know, the first half of step one, and then jump straight to step 12, helping with others. They call it two step. You know, I'm doing that, man. I'm feeling good, and it works for a while. But the problem is, for me, Duane is in the grips of a progressive illness over any considerable time. It gets worse, never better. What's wrong with you, Duane? Well, what's wrong with me is I'm an addict. And when I look at the definition of addict, it's kind of cool. But when I look at the definition of alcoholic, the one that I found many years ago, which doesn't include the word alcohol, it defines me perfectly. It says Duane has a chronic, complex, psychological, and nutritional disorder. And because I'm so intelligent, I had to look those words up too. And then it described me chronic, two or more interrelated parts. I mean, no, complex, two or more interrelated parts. Chronic, marked by long duration or frequent recurrence. That's key to a cat like me because that means I don't have to be the everyday hard drinker and user to be an addict or an alcoholic. There's one thing that differentiates me from my fellows, and I've developed an allergic reaction. The symptom of the allergic reaction is the abnormal craving for more. They call it an allergy. That's a nutritional disorder. The psychological part of my disorder is the mind and spirit. So psychological is mind and spirit because I looked that word up and I got to the root word psyche and it said mind and spirit. So even our dictionaries have a separation between mind and spirit. So I have a mind, spirit, and body disorder. And sometimes people say, where's that at in the big book? And I'm like 64, man. It says not only somewhere around there, it says not only have I been mentally and spiritually sick, but I've been spiritually ill. And once the spiritual malady is cleared up, then I straighten up physically and mentally. And people say, well, I just got to go get spiritual. Well, that may be true for you, but most of us have to go through a physical detox first. Because you can't get to the mind and spirit until you detox me. The man's brain needs to be cleared and often requires a definite medical procedure. That's a detox. And then when I'm in this place with you, Cat, I'm getting detox physically and mentally because you're giving me some information. And you know what you do? We do in these treatment facilities? They send me to a 12-step fellowship. I think Dr. Barb or somebody said, if they're honest, their job is to get in the medical fraternity to get us ready to come to a 12-step meeting. Now, I'm going to piss some people off. I know, but I believe Cocaine Anonymous is the best fellowship on the planet. And this is why, because we took the original book, somebody before me took the original book and they realized it applies to us. You know, they had a doctor called Dr. Alcoholic Addict. They changed it to Acceptance is the Key. But Dr. Alcoholic Addict, and when I realized that disease is the disease that I suffer from, they have a solution, not a watered down solution. That thing absolutely works. The promises says they will always materialize. That's 100% guarantee. If I put some work in though? So if I'm putting some work in, this is what's happening in my life, and I'm moving differently, man. After this fifth step, but because my disease is progressive, I got some other stuff to do. I got to go to 6, and I got to get to 7, and then I got to get to getting ready to make these amends and stuff like that. I got to go through all these different little things. But after revealing myself totally to this cat that I'm trusting, I'm a little less afraid to move forward. They give me instructions when I get to amends, don't lead with your chin. Use common sense and tact. They say stuff like as I don't go to anybody scrapping or and bowing before them. I meet them, I look them in the eyes. This is where I'm at. This is what I did, man. And I got a script. Can I be forgiven? And stuff like that. What do I have to do to make it right? It's real clear because you got to give me things. You got to give me a process. You got to give me a format that I can follow. I mean, I can go a little left, a little right, but I need a format. It's just like anything else in life. There's a proper form. I played a lot of sports growing up. We have proper form. When a guy his shot ain't falling, right? There's a form that you have to that you can go to. You go back to the basic form, and now things happen. It's a form that we go. We have a basic form. There's some wiggle room in here, but there's a format we go through, and this stuff works, y'all. I mean, I could go on and on about that, and you can say, well, Duane, this, that, and the other thing. Let me explain something to you who I am. I got sober. My last day drinking and using was December 30th, 1986. And I didn't know it was my last day drinking and using. When I went to that hospital, it wasn't to get sober. It was to put the pipe down, y'all. Because they told me I needed to stop everything. I thought they had lost their God blessed minds. Are you kidding me? Everything? This is something wrong with y'all. See, the crystal meth and the weed and the alcohol, that was fine. It's that crack that gave me the problem. I was long gone before crack. And I sat there and I got some moments of clarity in the facility. The first moment of clarity was, man, it wasn't that great outside. The next moment of clarity I got was, I'm getting ready to go get high because I ain't gotten high for about a month. And a blast would work about right now. When it wasn't working before, it'll work. But by this time, I don't want to get high and I don't know how not to. So I did what you guys said to do. Is when I'm all out of answers and reservations, I'm gonna get the job done myself. I listen to you guys. But because of the progressive nature of what I suffer from, you know what happens in 30, 60, 90 minutes of sobriety? I get new ideas. Ain't that some shit? I come up with something where I don't have to do it just like you did it, or I don't have to do that, or maybe I'm just gonna just go to church. If any of those things work for you, I'm okay with that because Duane does not have an exclusive monopoly on the therapy of alcoholics and addicts. There's all kinds of ways to do this thing. But if you keep coming back over and over and over again, maybe you need to look at what you're not doing. Just maybe. Or just maybe that's who you are. Just maybe. I'm just saying, man, because that's what I've been watching all these years. I had to be desperate, but desperation only and fear only keep me sober for a little while. I had to do some other things. I had to take some acts against self-will. I had to do what y'all did, even though I didn't believe in what you were doing. Ain't that some shit? I did not know this thing would keep me sober. I don't know what would keep me sober. I just know that I couldn't take what I was doing no more. And I didn't want to go back to it. So I did what you guys told me to do. I followed behind you, man. And I'm looking at you the whole time because I know you're effing lying. No way you can stay sober that long. You guys are lying, or this is a cult. You're doing all these things. The book says, I feel I'm on a broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. That's crazy, man. God don't want nothing to do with me. He knows what I did. I didn't feel that. I don't feel that way initially. But when I look back, it's in retrospect. When I look back and I say, dang, they say hindsight is 2020. And sometimes I believe it is for me. I look back and say, whoa, man, that had to be God. How did you stay sober then? How did you walk through that? What the hell was going on? That ain't you to win. What they said is happening. And I only look through my past experience and realize that something else is going on. Something else through a power greater than myself. Here they call it the spirit of the universe. I know for a fact, I have empirical evidence that this thing works, man. See, my faith doesn't come from, I believe that he will do this or God will do that or whatever you want to call him, however you want to. My faith comes from what just happened yesterday. My faith comes from what happened 3 weeks ago. My faith started happening at 18 months old with my girl. I call her my girl, my father's mom. She's my grandmother. A little less, almost 18 months, really like 14 months. She passed. Bro, I don't emotionally connect with a lot of people at that level, but that was my girl. And she left. And I drove 3,000 miles in a little tiny car with three kids, and at least they were all little then. My baby's 38, by the way. Three little kids and their mother, and the 5 speed is a Nissan Sentra. I don't even know if you got them over there in the UK. I drove 3,000 miles, man, with tears in my eyes, man. And 4 months earlier, I had called her. I said, yo, mom, because I called her mom. I said, mom. She said, yes, baby. I said, mom, guess what? She said, baby, has it been a year? I didn't even know she knew I was getting high. I said, what do you mean it hasn't been a year? She said, baby, I prayed for you. So I guess prayer works, man. But like I said, I didn't tell her because I was out here when most of my stuff, or on the West Coast when I did most of my dirt. I left home pretty early, and she said, I prayed for you. I said, wow, mom. And I used to call her. She used to call me every Sunday to talk to my oldest son. That's how long ago it was. And he's a little guy. And she would say, put the phone up to his ear, right? I'm like, mom, come on, put the phone up to his ear, boy. So I put the phone up to his ear, right? And he would listen to her, right? And I'm just standing there holding the phone. And then okay, after enough. So he had never met her. He had never saw her. So he's about 9 months old when he goes back to Philadelphia with his mom, right? She takes him to Philly. She takes him to meet my people, right? And my grandmother, tiny dark skinned lady. I mean, very dark, shockingly white hair, no teeth, and she just looked different than anything he had ever seen before. And so when she brings it in and he sees this lady, he says, "Oh no, I'm not going over there. I'm not going to that lady." And she just and they said, "Well, oh, he's this and that." And she said, "Oh, that's okay." He heard her voice and went right to her. I said, "Oh my goodness." He knew that woman. I got pictures when she came out here of them being on the beach because the first thing I did was I said, Mom, okay, you've been on the Atlantic coast. I said the first thing we're going to do, we didn't even get back from the airport. We're going to the beach. I want you to dip your toes in the Pacific Ocean. You know why? Cocaine Anonymous, y'all. I don't get to do those things, man, because of Cocaine Anonymous. You got to talk about the unshakable foundation. The foundation it talks about is step one. And then, it talks about the cornerstone is step two, and the keystone in that triumphant arch is step three. We're talking about a spiritual structure that's going to withstand calamity. We're going to be able to match calamity with serenity, and they talk about these things, but I got to get to a certain point first. You see, I can't expect to stay physically fit. And by the way, I'm not. if I don't do the physical exercise. I like to talk about the sit-ups, the push-ups, the road work. You do those things, right? And you remain physically fit. As a matter of fact, you don't have to believe in those things. You don't have to believe in push-ups, sit-ups, and word work for them to work, for them to work. You just have to do it. Isn't that something? I believe it's the same way with this program. I don't have to believe in the spiritual exercises that we do. I just need to engage in them. And when I engage in them, I get the results. It just says wholeheartedly, stuff like that. I don't have to believe it. I just do the things and I look back and I've been sober another day. God keeps me sober, right? But he put some things in front of me, says, I'll do this and I got you. If we keep him close and do his work well, he's going to do the heavy lifting. That's my interpretation of what's in the book. He does the heavy lifting. I just need to show up, work with somebody. He don't got to stay sober. I just need to be a part of a meeting, man, and maybe have a commitment, right? They don't have to like me, but if people that know me, man, know I like doing something. I like making coffee and serving coffee in the meetings. I like it so much. I take a quick little story. I got a few minutes, right? I like telling stories. So I'm about 5 years sober. Big meeting. It was a big meeting for our area at the time, like 90 people. It's on like a Sunday. And everybody's face forward. They had a little stage, tables and chairs all facing forward, right? Coffee was in the back. And I would get there early, I would make the coffee and I would get my tray, put everything that it takes, the cups, the stirrers, uh, plus obviously coffee, a pot of coffee, and then have the condiments. And I would go to everybody's. I would walk around and I would serve coffee, going through the rows. And what happens is, if you want some, you would take it, pour yourself a coffee, get the things that you want to go with your coffee, right? And I was doing this. So this cat walks up to me and says, "Yo, Duane." I said, "What's up, man?" He said, "You're doing pretty good doing that commitment." I said, "You think so? Thank you very much." He said, "So how long you been sober? About 6 months?" I said, "No, man, I've been sober like 5 years." I said, "But you've been sober about 6 months because I saw you when you walked in here." He said, "So why are you serving coffee at 5 years, Duane?" I said, "It's the best commitment in the room." He said, "How so?" I said, when I'm walking around with that tray and I'm offering it to everybody?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "It's virtually impossible for them to say yes or no without giving me a smile. I get a smile from every person in the room. It's the best fucking commitment in the room." He says, "I want that commitment." So I handed him the tray and sat down and watched him do the thing. That's how we do it around here, man. That's how they taught me how to do it. Man, I'm having a good time. And to this day, man, we still serve coffee. Those of you know, I'm a part of this group called the Merino Valley Early Group. We meet every day at 6:30 Pacific time, right? And now it's hybrid, so it came back right there. But you know what, man? One of the things we do is serve coffee, and I get there late. Guess what? I don't get to make the coffee, and I don't get to serve the coffee. Them guys are like, "Yo, man, I'm serving today. Sit your ass down, Duane." I'm like, "All right, I'm sit down," and stuff like that. Because they told me that in serving, they said in serving, I could be a leader. See, I don't have to be a leader in title, but if I'm serving, I'm showing somebody how this thing works. I get out of myself for a second. I like being the greeter. I like being at the front door talking about, "Hey, welcome to the meeting, man. Glad you can make it." They told me that's what you do, Duane. That's how we do this thing. It's action and more action. And then I take action on myself. I do these things and I do the rest of the steps and I go to people and I make amends with instruction, being careful to use tact and common sense. And I learned these things because you guys showed me these things. You guys gave me clear-cut directions on how to do this thing. So if I do the work, I'm going to get the results. And that's something. Check this out. People say stuff like, "If you believe that you can achieve it, that may be true. But what I believe is bring your mind to catch up. Do the work and then tell me what happens. Do what I do and then come back in about a year, 4 or 5 months and say, 'Man, Duane, you full of shit, man. That shit don't work. Prove it to me.'" But see, you don't have to prove it to me. See, because one thing that I know is that I am not a product of what I do, the work that I did. I am a result of God giving me grace and mercy, allowing me to do these different things. See, I don't do those things, sponsoring people, other service commitments, and all that stuff to stay sober. That's not what I do. I do those things because I am sober. See, I get sober and they say, "Go do this." So it's an honor and a privilege to be able to serve coffee. Another story. It's a New Year's Day. I'm in the Merino Valley Early Group. Nobody's in the meeting but me. This is long before COVID and stuff. I'm sitting in there by myself, but I made the coffee. The books is laid out. I'm chilling. This guy walks in the meeting. I know him. He had went back out and he's giving me one of the best compliments I've ever received in my life. He said, "I knew you would be here." That's the power that I serve, y'all. The power that I serve had made me look consistent or be consistent in another person's life. and he was messed up. He was all shook up, man. So when he was all messed up, I kind of laughed at him like Bill and Bob laughed at that guy in the hospital. They said he grinned. They grinned at me, but I ain't like that so much. I started giggling when I saw him because I'm happy because he made it back. Everybody don't make it back. I said, "Yo, man, you want some coffee?" He said, "Yeah." And I served him some coffee. Sometimes that's all we get to do, man. Sometimes it's the best thing for him because he was obviously he was sprung, but he sat down with me and he had a cup of coffee. It's another guy that would come to the meetings and come to the meetings and come to the meetings, right? And he could never stay sober. And we had a cup board on there with everybody's different sobriety anniversaries, right? But he wanted to have a cup, right? But people say, well, you gotta have a sobriety day to have a cup. So we gotta have a cup, right? And the sobriety said TBD, to be determined. And guess what? He finally got a sobriety date. He just kept coming back. And it's our job to keep the doors open for him. It was my job, our job to welcome him. It was our job to make sure he had a place to be. If that's not walking on the broad highway, hand in hand with the spirit of the universe, I don't know what is. It's not sounding like something. It's what I'm doing, man. It's like we do something right and somebody got him off the floor. Why not me? We got cups because I hate drinking out of styrofoam. So we bought a whole bunch of cups, man, regular cups, right? Merino Valley Early Group. Somebody got to wash those things out since everybody's using them, right? And I'm kind of anal about that shit. I put bleach and soap and water and hot water and, make sure those cups get some good soak in it, some bleach them so the coffee stains in them and I wash them and I hang them back up. And somebody said to me one day, right? I remember it was the funniest shit because I think a lot of stuff is funny. He says, I don't drink out of somebody else's, I don't drink after other people in cups. I said, really? You don't drink after other people? He says, no. I said, so you've never been to a restaurant? Oh shit! You drink out of people all the time. You eat up the folks and off the silverware and everything. That's unless it's a paper plate. But you go into a restaurant, you get a cup that's going to be reused. And I said, let me explain something to you. I wash these cups. I'm a little anal about it, so I know these cups is clean. And when we have our first Sunday breakfast, we have breakfast. If you ever get to Southern California, you got to come to the first Sunday breakfast from Merino Valley Early Group. You'd be surprised what crackheads can do with a few hot plates and skillets and stuff like electric skillets. Man, we're throwing down over there. And what happens is the night before we everything is stored away. The night before, I'll go in there and I'll wash everything again. I believe it. I think a couple of my jobs growing up was washing dishes in restaurants, so I'm kind of anal about it. I got this thing. But you know what? When I go in there, it feels so good because I'm serving the fellowship. In a lot of ways, anonymously. Nobody sees me doing that. When everybody leaves and everybody's gone, because we might be there a few hours after breakfast, I'll mop the floor, I'll open the doors and I'll mop and I go over it a couple of times. It's so cathartic for me to know that I'm doing something. Sometimes I'm telling you guys about it, so it's not so anonymous now. But that's the type of service we do around this piece, man. It's not, oh, I'm the chairman of the area, I'm a trustee, I'm a conference. Yeah, those are nice. Those are necessary positions. They serve everybody above them. I get that, and everybody doesn't need to do that, and everybody's not even qualified to do those things. And if I do this work that I'm doing, I get to be comfortable with what I'm qualified to do. You know, my sponsor specializes in sponsoring people and starting meetings. That's what he does in workshops. And he does it very, very well. And he's been sober. He's closing in on 40 years, just like I am. I do my thing's a little bit different, We got different assignments, and we have a member. I love her. It's actually my sponsor's wife. She always says this. She talks about the fellowship being like a cake, and cakes have all these different ingredients in it, right? And I take that another step further, right? And I said, well, cakes to have full flavor need salt for the most part. And if you've ever had a cake without salt, those low sodium deals, they're also without flavor. Now, you wouldn't think that salt adds flavor to something so sweet and savory, but it does. And you know it once it didn't have salt in it, it's missing something, right? So in our fellowship, this is the way I look at it. We need those old salty, crusty MFers. They add flavor to the sobriety cake. We need them. That's just my opinion, y'all. I see, and they'll be around there and they'll be grumpy and all that shit. And I just start laughing. I'm like, yeah, we need your ass. Yeah, we need you. Just go right here. Have a seat. You want some coffee? Man, why? Rule 62. I don't take myself that seriously. I'm passionate about what we do. I'm passionate about this thing. I just don't take me that seriously. And so now I can practice love and tolerance. I can have some acceptance for you. And I pray for people. And I was praying for people that you'd be surprised. People piss me the hell off. I ain't gonna lie. People said, "Oh, Duane, you're so even tempered." I said, "If you knew what's going on in my fucking brain, you wouldn't say that anymore because mine sometimes." But I learned early on is that everybody doesn't need to know what you're thinking. And even if my attitude is improper, it doesn't have to be followed up by improper action. I could take the right action. I can be polite and pleasant to you. And it's not funny. It's just how I'm supposed to be. I don't have to feel it to put my hand out and say welcome. I just have to put my hand out and say welcome, and one day I'll feel it. So I pray for these people, page 552, wanting all kinds of good things for them. They say do it for 2 weeks. You know, that shit works, y'all. But because of the disease that I suffer from, I'll do it for a couple of weeks. I'll be feeling a certain way about them. I'm okay with them, right? 3 weeks later, I got to start praying for them MFers again. I do the inventory. I do the things that we're supposed to do. The way and bring your ass, your mind to catch up. You don't have to believe in the work. You just have to do the work that the rest of us believe in. You'll get the results. That's what I believe, bro. So I don't do this thing because I'm smart. I don't do this thing because I'm so intelligent and so strong. I do this thing because I just don't know what else to do. See, you could be too smart for this fellowship, in my opinion, but a whole lot of us dumb SOBs stay sober for 30 years, a day at a time, heartbeat at a time. So you know what I mean? I'm going back and forth. I dropped the fifth step promises, my interpretation on. Then after that you go home and you chill for a minute. I did that last night too for about an hour. It was cool, y'all. And I did the 6 and 7 after that as the guy instructed me to do. Following clear cut directions. I did those things, man. And I got up this morning, man, and I didn't know that would do a fifth step. Really didn't know that when I told Young that I would share on this. See how God works? I just did this, y'all, last night, this morning. And now I'm sharing on it. It's still kind of fresh because I'm kind of old, my memory ain't that good, you know what I'm saying? But see how God works? The God that I believe in is the giver of perfect gifts, of perfection. That means in my mind, he has to be beyond perfection. That's the God that I serve. This perfect power that keeps the universe in perfect orbit and perfect synchronicity. That's what I serve. So if you're new or nearly new, welcome to Cocaine Anonymous, man. Hang up your hat and coach at home. We've been waiting just for you. If you a retread, you're just getting back, we got a seat for you. We never close the doors for you. We need you because this is what they told me. You only get a heartbeat contract with God. And in this program, you only have to do it a heartbeat at a time. And thank God, also here, we speak the language of the heart. Thanks for letting me share.
So I'm going to. Okay, so first in, Sean, would you like to come and ask a question?
Yeah, many thanks, and thanks for taking the meeting. Duane, what a joy, what a privilege. My name's Sean, and I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic. So many amazing sort of turns of phrase. I was like rattling through them, but there's one that leaps out for me that I'm going to ask you to expand on if you don't mind, Duane. My faith comes from yesterday. Please, could you go into that a little bit more for me? I got my take on it, but I don't want to hear my take. I want to hear yours.
So faith is I'm going to believe certain things are going to happen that haven't happened yet. So my faith isn't built upon what I think may happen. My faith is built on the experiences that I just had, that when I look back on that experience, I realized there was a power other than the power that I had running the show. And that's where it comes from. It's like, man, this just happened over there. Oh, I was just over here and it just happened. It could happen in amends. And so I am more apt to go make amends, but I just had a good experience with this one. One of my amends, like, was for a guy that fired me. you know. And what happened was I kept trying to get in touch with the business, and when I finally got in touch, when they finally allowed me to talk to this guy, it was the last day he was working. If one more day I wouldn't have been able to see him, he'd have been gone. Nobody had been able to get in touch with him. And it was one of the best amends that I made. When I went and sat down and made amends to this guy, a formal amends, you know what he told me? He said, I know what you're here for. My wife is in that program. That's where the faith comes from. I know that I'm working for a power beyond my control, beyond my understanding. What is that? Just five coincidences in a row? Nobody hits nobody hits five sevens in a row, man. Let me tell you, Sean, the fucking game is rigged, man. You do what I'm doing, you're playing with loaded dice. It's hard to lose, man. Hopefully that answered it.
Thank you for your question, Sean. Next up, Isaac, do you want to come in with your question?
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, everyone doing service. Hi, I'm Isaac. I'm an addict. Really good to be here. Duane, thank you so much for your share. You just had me smiling the whole time. Really, really great listening to you. I'm going to cheat a little bit and kind of have a double question. I really enjoyed just listening to you talk about service and your experience with it. And so my question or questions are, has your experience with service changed at all over the time you've been here? And is there any advice you would like to give to those who are just starting to be of service?
What's happened for me is that I've become more grateful for the opportunity to serve you guys. And I've gotten a better understanding of people and a better acceptance of people when I realized that everybody, for the most part, whether you're at a meeting level or a lower level, we all want the same thing. We want what we believe is best for the fellowship. We just don't always agree on how we should go. And I really believe that this is God's fellowship. There's nothing that I can do to break it. So I'm not afraid of people maybe making decisions I don't agree with. I just sit there and say, okay, let's see what happens. I've been wrong before. So that's what's happened. I've gotten better understanding and tolerance of working with people because I want to think what the way I want to go is right. It don't have to. And once again, I can't break it. If God created it, how can I possibly break it? There's a scientific theory that says matter can't be destroyed. So I believe that the Cocaine Anonymous is going to be here as long as God wants it to be, whether I participate or not. I'm honored to be here, though. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you, Isaac, for your question. Next up, Young, you're next.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. My name's Young, grateful recovered addict. Thank you so much, Duane. Something you said reminded me when I think you talked about your grandma when she said, I've been praying for you, Duane. And it reminded me of Isaac, my son, who's just shared his grandma. Whenever I was in treatment, she said, I'm praying for you, Young. I'm praying for you. When I look back, thank you for those prayers. Anyway, that's not the question. It just reminded me of that. My question is about step 5. I've done a few over the years with different teachers and different guides, and I wondered how many you've done over the years. Had you done them with different sponsors or teachers, and have you ever shared a step 5 with multiple people? And thank you for sticking around for so many years, Duane. Thank you.
Yes, I have done everything I've done it with multiple people. In other words, the same step 5. In other words, I've shared it with a particular sponsor, and he said, because he said I want you to go share this with a female. That was a little difficult, but I did that. I was able to do that, and I've had different teachers, and all the experiences have been valuable. I think sharing a step 5 with a female was quite humbling. And going into it, I felt a little embarrassed because I'm getting ready to tell her who I really am. And so it was, I wasn't humiliated. I was humbled. And being humbled, then I started understanding the truth. And she was so gracious, and the feedback was amazing. So, yes, I don't know how many I've done over the years. I don't know. I know some people keep count, and my memory's not that good. But yes, multiple people, same 5th step, great experience.
Thanks for your question, Young. Next up, Michael, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Duane, for your share. I absolutely really enjoyed your honesty and how you spoke about how sometimes your mind will be going like saying one thing, but your actions always say say a different thing. So my question is similar to Young's in regards to a step 5, and it was so you said you recently did a step 5, well, like recently as in last night. When you were on writing your step 4, did you have any of the same feelings or behaviors or fears as you did when you did your first one, which would have been 30 odd year ago? It's just sometimes I notice like people, like I've done 2 and I thought on my second one, oh, it'll be all right. I know what's coming and all this, and I was still irritable, I was still restless. I just wondered, did you experience that further down the line, or was it just, a piece of cake?
Absolutely, some of the same shit came up. 100%. As a matter of fact, somebody that I've been knowing a long time, and I refused to write inventory on this person, and it came up. It's like, you need to put this on the inventory and look at yourself and read it to somebody else and get inventory doesn't always, and the fifth step doesn't always give me relief right away. What I get for me is some more clarity. I think being clear is a spiritual thing. So what happens is if I get clear on some things, my intent changes. And that's what happened for me. So I'm like, okay, I'm still like this. Maybe not as bad as before. We make spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection. Maybe not bad as before. Maybe it was worse. I'm in a grip of progressive illness. And I don't trip about those things. It just tells me that, Duane, you need to keep walking this road because sometimes I hit a dip and sometimes I hit a high, sometimes I'm even. Sometimes I'm not as good as I was before, man. I get over myself. I really do. I expect those kind of things to happen. So God in his infinite wisdom was what they told me made it hard for me to pat myself on the back as it is to kick myself in the ass. Duane, get over yourself and keep it pushing. It's not about you anymore. Thanks. Did I answer your question, Mike?
Thank you, Michael, for your question. Next up, David, do you want to come in?
Yeah. Hey, my name is David. I'm a recovered fentanyl addict, and I want to thank God for our life. And thank you, everybody, for those questions. And Duane, that was a beautiful share. And, I don't have a question because if I need a question answered, he's here every day, 365, because this is the Moreno Valley Group. This is where we meet. It's our local CA Alano Club. And Duane loves to do the coffee, but my favorite commitment is greeting people. And that's something else, man. And I want to give it up, but no one has really taken that from me, but I'm waiting for that newcomer. I'm waiting for that one person, to experience the blessings I get by doing that. And it's so true. Duane is such a humble man. If I have a question for him, you know what? If he doesn't know, he says, I don't know. Right. And to me, that's the earmark of great character in anyone, right? To be able to admit, they may not have the information on that. And he's a great listener. And I could go on and on about the attributes of this gentleman. I just know when I got here, I was homeless. I was homeless in the first 3 years of my sobriety. And he did. It was like, welcome home. Hang up your tie. We've been waiting for you. We kept the lights on for you. And I don't know about you, but I felt like that unwelcome hanger on. I had done so much damage, right? And I felt that nobody wanted to see me, all that kind of stuff. And I felt welcome right away. And he did. He put out that coffee cup and he poured the coffee. And I have to tell you, it was awkward for someone serving someone like me. I was barely able to accept that cup of coffee, but as a result of going through this work, things have changed, man. Duane, I love you, right? And if you don't know this, Duane says, I love you, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Thanks for allowing me to share.
Thank you, David, for coming in with that one. Can I call in Danny with your question, please?
Thanks, Katie. My name's Danny. I'm an addict, and Duane, thanks so much. Absolutely loved it. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful message tonight. My question for you is, you talked about the pink cloud, and my question is, when you first went through your first fifth step, was that your first experience of the pink cloud? And it's a double barrel question. So the second part is, do you believe that the pink cloud is dependent on your spiritual condition, and have you sort of dipped in and out through the years? Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. So the pink cloud they were referencing was a feeling of euphoria and all this great feelings before I had done any real work. It's like when I'm sober and not drinking and using, it's just, everything is wonderful. Everything is wonderful. And until it's not. And that's what had happened in the meeting. I didn't have this upbeat thing. And that's when that old timer hit me with that. It's about damn time. Now you'll do some real work. And that's what happened because there was nothing left for me to do but pick up the kit of spiritual tools that you had left at my feet. That was sober. See, people talk, maybe people do it when they first get in here, but it took me a minute. So at a sober state of mind, I said, well, this is all I got left. Let me give it a shot. And that's what they're talking about. So now when I get to those highs after the work, that's not the pink cloud that they're talking about. They're talking about feeling a certain way, not having done any work. Does that make sense? What I get after that is the spiritual experience is much better than the pink cloud. The spiritual awakening much better than the pink cloud. Thanks. Did I answer your question?
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Danny, for coming in with that question. Ollie, do you want to take us out with the last question?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. My name's Ollie. I'm a recovered drug addict. Good to be here. Thank you so much, Duane. Really powerful share. My question is, what were the old ideas that you had to let go of? And when you did your most recent step 5, was there any old ideas that you were still kind of hanging on to? Thanks.
One of them was that people need to be who I think they should be. That's a huge one. And that doesn't fully go away. It comes and goes. The other one is that what I used to think was everything I did during this period of my life was a certain way, was bad. I was good here, I was bad there, and that's not how it goes. My old ideas was that I thought I could fix myself. That was an old idea. The other one is that I could fix you. So I had to let go of those things, man, and realize that we talk about that life is none of my business. It's God's show. I'm just here to play the part that He assigns me. So the old idea is that I could determine the part, and my new idea is that it's been determined for me. Just sit quiet long enough to become aware of it. Those are the old ideas. And here's the last one. Don't take yourself so seriously, Duane. You ain't that damn important.
Oh, thank you, Ollie, for that.